Yo, what up, Street Gods? Eric Kim. All right, some turbo thoughts for you. So this one is some thoughts on life. So what do you do once you get the 2 Lambos in the bank? What do you do once you're self-employed, location independent, financial independent, blah blahs, and you're in beautiful Southern California where there's mostly always sun? I mean, just some pragmatic thoughts I have is, first, have kids, have at least one. I mean, people think that kids are detrimental upon their happiness and their freedom, but actually, on the contrary, kids are the best tool to actually augment your curiosity, your happiness, your joy. Like, even simple things like things that he does that makes me proud. Like yesterday, I gave him like a little wet wipe, and he started cleaning the room like I was cleaning. He's only 1 year, 9 months. He started cleaning his potty. Actually picked up his potty and cleaned beneath it too, so thorough. And I was just like so proud of him, and it was like this insanely overwhelming feeling. And the notion of being proud of your kid is very unique, because it's more delightful and shocking and surprising than if you did something yourself. So for example, the first time I was able to deadlift over 500 pounds or 550 pounds, whatever, it was insanely gratifying and also a little bit shocking, but it was kind of expected insofar much as I've been practicing for a long time. Whereas with your kid, it could just be so random, and that's the joy out of it. It just it wasn't really, I didn't ask for it. He just kind of did it on his own. So then the question is, how many kids should you have, right? I can't speak for you, but my personal thought is every man aspires to have at least one son, right? It's a kind of a sexist part of society, but I think it's pretty true, right? So then let's assume your first kid is a boy. Then should you have more? Depends, right? Do you want a BOGO kid? And it's just oh, our first kid was so good, so perfect, you just have another for funsies? I mean, up to you, right? I mean, I only have one kid right now, so I can't really say much, but so that's the kid's thoughts. Then the second thought is, I think it has to do something with pioneering and innovating new techniques, new ideas, new approaches, whatever. Everyone has a different skill set. Mine is blogging, vlogging, videoing, talking nonsense, and sharing it online. And that's one thing I like about going solo. You could just say whatever's on your mind. If I gave advice to Kanye, right? KanyeWest.com, he should just make his own blog again, or social media or something, where he could just post anything he wants to his own website. Because the problem with social media and Twitter and whatever, he keeps getting censored because social media ain't freedom of speech. It's a privately held company. I mean, at least one of the good things was Elon taking over is it'll become more open and free, although more, more hateful, I suppose. But that's the cost of free speech. One cannot expect free speech without hate. And I mean, I don't like hate, but that seems to be a truism. Yeah, so I mean, simple ways you could spread your thoughts is you could either write about it, blog about it, you could vlog about it, you could podcast it, you could audio visual it. A huge pro tip is just get a GoPro Hero, the newest one. I have the 10, I think the 11's out, and just shoot 1080p 24 fps ultra wide mode. Don't get no attachments or nothing like that. I think they're not necessary. Disable the front LCD screen and the blinking lights because that's distracting. And yeah, and just stream your thoughts. I mean, whenever a random thought comes to your mind, just say what's on your mind. I think And don't try to talk standard, right? I remember in California, the number one thing you're supposed to get rid of in your vocabulary is the word like basu. But it might be an important thing, actually. I think the cadence of everyone's thoughts is a little bit different, and the word like or there's kind of like mental placeholders, which I think is actually really important for talking more naturally. And then the biggest issue is when people stop talking naturally because they want to look more professional or whatever. But I just feel that's a very disingenuous and boring, right? It's like same thing with writing too, right? It's notions of good writing tend to be very reductive and Procrustean. I might start my own monster story. If you want to enroll your kids into the Eric Kim Monster Story, holla. My email is eric@erickim.com. Enrollments start today. So, yeah, and I think to become more free-spirited, to become more open-minded, to share more of what's on your mind is very important and critical. And using yourself as a filter of what's interesting, what's not, like, I think as a pro tip, to simply share what's on your mind, what's interesting to you, is actually better than thinking about what other people will like. So kind of more of the Steve Jobs model, where you use your own intuition and gut to invent something rather than asking market research for what people want. That's the problem with analytics and stuff like that, is they don't tell you nothing about the future. It tells you what's worked well in the past, right? Or present, but it will not tell you the future, right? So for example, Jeff Bezos was talking about in his shareholder letter, when they invented Amazon Web Services, AWS, nobody asked for it. Like, people weren't like, oh, we need new cloud services that scales in depth. No one asked for it. It's just like they had some intuition, they made a big bet, and a decade, 2 decades later, it paid off, right? And it seems so bizarre because at the time Amazon was just still selling books and other random stuff, and they're like, we should get into cloud services. That wasn't even a concept, right? And so I think that's where the benefit of just taking insanely big bets is useful. And just know that, try to do it in such a way that none of the bets will be cause you to go bankrupt. I mean, I think in entrepreneurship it tends to be glorified that the great entrepreneur is the one who puts 100% of his money in a certain idea and attempts it, and then if it fails, like, I think that's, like, I would never do that. I think that's very foolish in a bad way. I think it's better to do lots of small bets and cap the downside. So for example, like, even when I was speculating in cryptocurrency, and I'm still very bullish on cryptocurrency and crypto and Bitcoin and stuff like that, I only put, this is the best advice I got from Nassim Taleb from Anti-Fragile on investments, is it's better to put 10% of your money in an insanely speculative thing, like, let's say crypto, and then have it go to zero, than to put 100% of your money in like a moderate risk thing and then lose a bunch of money, right? Because the upside is your 10% bet could 10-fold or 100-fold or a million-fold, rather than have moderate returns, right? And it just tends to be more fun, right? So, I mean, what are some small bets you could do, right? Like, shell out the $400 or something, get a GoPro. I think it's a good idea. Also, I do recommend getting an iPad Pro. I think it's the most underrated digital tool out there. Don't buy a new laptop or a new iPhone. It's not substantial. Just get a new iPad Pro instead. The M2 is out. I'm sure it's good. I have the M1. It's great. I love it. Seneca loves it. He loves to play GarageBand on it. Another pro tip is never introduce your kid to YouTube. It's the devil. Instead, just give them GarageBand on your iPhone or your iPad. And Seneca's like, he knows how to sample his own voice and stuff like that. It's pretty amazing. Once again, shout out to the GarageBand team. Another thought I have is if you spend a lot of time being stuck in traffic or commuting, like currently here in the burbs, right? Yeah, try to find a clever way to mount your GoPro to your camera, to your car, and then just talk nonsense while you're driving. I mean, it's, truth be told, it's pretty dangerous, but I figure it's less dangerous than, you know, texting while driving or podcast or whatever. That's a big thing, is that, like, whenever life gives you kind of a bad situation or scenario, it seems to be most intelligent to figure out how to leverage that to your benefit. So for example, let's say you're stuck in traffic all day, right? Yeah, like set up, like, you know, your GoPro or whatever, and just use that time. Like, you know, the comedians in cars with coffee from Jerry Seinfeld, super genius. I super love that. I think actually more people should do that. More people should use GoPros. I mean, right now the rage is all get, you know, get the iPhone Pro. I think the iPhone Pro is interestingly enough, it's actually not for quote unquote professionals. It's actually for, like, it's for like millennial girls who just want to shoot really nice selfies themselves, or people who just want to buy as a status symbol, right? I mean, I think real men just use iPhone SEs or iPhone, I guess the iPhone minis discontinued now, so that's not good. Or a real man wouldn't even own a phone, right? Like, you'd be like a Tyler Durden, right? Don't own a car, don't own a phone, don't own nothing, because the more things that you own, the more things own you. I think that's what Nietzsche said. And yeah, and I think spending more of your time, you know, weightlifting, hype lifting, powerlifting, whatever you want to call it. And for me, at this point, lifting weights, it's kind of more of like a Zen temple, like a chance for me to meditate and think. I never work out with music on. I used to, but I stopped. And so I kind of get lost in my thoughts, which is nice. And sometimes if I'm doing a fun lift, I'll just GoPro it just for funsies and just put it on the YouTubies. And also a lot of my creative ideas come when I'm lifting weights at the gym. My theory is when you're getting a physiological pump from lifting weights, getting the adrenaline, the hype, the testosterone, it actually gives genesis to new ideas. And I think I might have been the first person to have thought of this idea that Zen and testosterone are actually linked, that the higher my test is and the more I'm about to hype myself up before an insanely heavy lift, the more Zen I become. Very, very interesting thought. And I'd even imagine too, is like, you know, imagine the Spartan 300s when they're, you know, fighting to their most likely death. There's kind of more of a calm before the storm feeling, heightened sense of things, right? Like Frank Miller says, rather than fear. And I think that's a very interesting thought, is that when it's not fear so much, but it's kind of more adrenaline hype that kind of increases your sensitivity to things, which allows you to become more strong and focused in the goal at hand. And surprisingly enough, I still think that I think media is the future, insofar much as we humans seem to have a voracious appetite to consume media, whether it be audio, visual, sonic, etc. Until the end of time, humans will continue to write new books, to make new movies and films and shows, to make new artwork, and I think that's what makes life, humanity, and society so great. I mean, even if everyone's stuck on a spaceship, I'm sure that people are still going to make art, right? And share it on the space Wi-Fi's, intergalactic Wi-Fi's. Man, anyone who hates on Elon Musk, I think they're just like jelly. They're just like... Nietzsche has a funny thought. It's like, I hate him because I am no match for him. ... Has anyone ever thought this? So it's like, even nowadays, whenever I find somebody that, like, I'm like, oh, that guy's so annoying or whatever, I just try to think to myself, I'm like, am I hating on that person because I'm just envious that I'm not as great as them? Yeah, probably, perhaps. Or maybe you feel that said person has reached their success through unethical methods, like let's say a Donald Trump, right? It's up to you. You use the philosopher, right? Use the seeker of wisdom, right? But yeah, I think ultimately there's more wisdom in the body, more wisdom in lifting weights, more wisdom in being outdoors in the sun than all the books of combined, all the books of philosophy combined. #Nietzsche.